People discredit science-based lifters because the science is not caught up to the peak of performance.
He always trains according to the latest science, and he trains like a bro. He'll build more muscle.
Depends on how they are applying the science and how they are training like a gym bro, which has an insane degree of variance. Okay, though, let's speak in generalities.
A lot of my audience would say the science guy because he's tapped into the new and optimized methods. But
a lot of your audience says the science guy because your audience are novices. You have 6 million subscribers, Jeff. The overwhelming majority, when they apply your science-based training methods, they're going to see novice results, and that's going to verify their perception of the science through confirmation bias.
a lot of the bodybuilding community would say the bro will build more muscle because he trains harder.
It all depends on how you contextualize things. The bros tend to fall into two camps. One would be the train all out, and that goes hard, quote unquote, and then the other camp is primarily the one that's going through the motions.
The science guy would know from a pile of research that you need to get close to failure to maximize muscle growth.
He wouldn't know that. The research would appear to indicate that. Be very careful with your language if you're going to be scientific.
He isn't training really hard. He's not really science-based. The bro will have figured out that doing different exercises to target the muscle is a good idea.
The bro may also figure out that not overcomplicating things and doing the simplistic method is also better. Two ends of the spectrum for the bros.
Science guy could provide a study to support that.
Many times what the bros are saying is supported by some sort of evidence.
Assuming they both stay natural, I do.
Here comes the natty comment.
Science guy would build more muscle and be less likely to get injured over the long term. But
That is nothing but pure conjecture and your opinion, Jeff.
they'll both make gains. The practical difference between them probably isn't as big as it seems.
So long as they're natural? Question mark? Because what you seem to be implying is that if somebody goes on gear and then they do the gym bro stuff where they're like ignoring the science, that they're going to be bigger. Judging by what you just said, ask yourself what research is the non-scientific scientist referring to, and what sort of information is the bro referring to? It's almost as if when you program for individuals, the more advanced you get, you cannot conduct science-based research. The more advanced you get, the less scientific you become. What you're doing is sharing your non-scientific opinion, and it's very pretentious.
People discredit science-based lifters.
Many of the studies are not with advanced trainees, they are with novices. And that right there corrupts the data.
Science-based lifters tend to be more natural on average.
Jeff, think about what you just said.
People who don't know the difference between a natural and an enhanced physique will just see the enhanced physique and be like, they obviously know what they're doing more.
What does that have to do with science-based lifters? You can be a science-based lifter, have an advanced physique, and the same things still apply.
But the steroids is a huge X factor.
Yeah.
Science-based lifters on average are smaller.
And the science-based lifters are smaller, not because they're necessarily more natural. The methods that they decide to apply are inferior to an individual's applied experience. If they just exclusively waited for a case study or some sort of research to come out before they tried something, they would never be where they are.
Because they're natural, not because the methods are inferior.
Most non-scientific lifters may actually reference the science as a data point to take into consideration. So it's about being holistic and not tunnel visioned.
There's another camp of people who think science is a gimmick.
As you present it,
You do all these weird exercises I've never heard of, which some don't like. Science tells us a few foundational principles. Most of the studies are done on how hard should you train, how many sets you should do, machine exercises versus free weight exercises. And then when you get down into the weeds, should we do this on cable, should we do this with dumbbells? It's an indirect application of science. Because it's a little more sexy, that's what tends to get more attention.
an indirect application of science. Now you're changing your variables and you're no longer being scientific. some of the comments. The science side, for me, isn't about maximizing hypertrophy, it's about minimizing injury risk while still getting that hypertrophy. And we don't have that sort of data, and under what circumstances? Not scientific. Never knew people would be against science-based lifting. I don't understand how people can see something like this study just found that doing this makes you 15% stronger and just go, nah. The reason why people go, nah, is because they actually read the study. The only thing I would criticize on science-based lifting promoters is the overcomplication of simple stuff. Sticking to the basics is the best approach. Absolutely agree here. It's ironic that the ones who reject science-based lifting are the same ones who use science in everything else. From dieting, using calculations to ensure they get the right amount of nutrients, will listen to their doctors. No. What is actually happening is you have non-science being marketed as science and people thinking they're smart because they use the phrase science-based lifting. They're just bigger because they're on juice. Wah! Literally the biggest science-based bodybuilding channel almost exclusively has roided up people on the channel. Absolutely true. A bunch of gear